Sorry. Good evening, it's 6:01. Let's call this meeting of the June News Charter School Board of Directors to order, and we will proceed through the agenda as outlined by starting with our ethics statement. Board members are reminded that it's our duty to avoid conflicts of interest or the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the board. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Thank you. Public comment. We do not have anyone signed up for public comment at this point. Okay, so we'll move on. Clearly, we do not have quorum, so we may need to navigate the agenda slightly differently. So we'll skip the approval of the minutes and go to Athletic Booster Club report. I believe I don't know if she's here, our new president of the Booster Club. We send her congratulations and best wishes, Lena Smith.
Can you remind me her name?
Lena Smith. And do we have any report from the Student Government Association? Not at this time. And so Ms. Sandora is sitting in for Ms. Pulliam and will give us the director's report.
Okay, so the director's report for this evening, an enrollment update. The total enrollment target for 2019-2020 is 960 students. Enrolled as of the 23rd of June 2019 is 959 students. The total remaining on our wait list as of the 23rd of June is 390 total students. Our staffing update, total full-time positions, we have 92. We have 10 total vacancies at this time with 5 recommendations for closed session today. We are continuing the interview process for the remaining vacancies at this time. Operations update. We're bringing several contracts for student and facility services during our new business tonight. Summer facility projects are underway at this point in time. At this point, we've completed installing the edging around the mulch beds, painting the gym lobby, painting the first floor of the high school, installing a chair rail in the classrooms. Ordered at this point in time are the replacing the worst store front doors, installing exterior trash receptacles, and we're in progress of treating and sealing ramps and installing grit for the treads, renting a scissor lift to make repairs to clean the high areas, scheduling the power washing of all areas, windows in the high school, and moving the ductless 4-way air handler in the high school stairwell. So those are working on. A strategic plan update. We are on schedule to bring an update to the July Board of Directors meeting. We're already working on some immediate needs to accelerate the implementation of the plan. So for academics, we are having ongoing curriculum workshops with teachers throughout the summer to develop NCS's pacing guides, unit plans, and aligning scoring criteria for our assessments. We're also developing a formal process for reviewing and approving new courses or classes. We're increasing the total number of Chromebooks and iPads for student devices within the existing budget constraints. Proposals for expanding budget requests will be included in future updates. And finally, for academics and also culture as well, scheduling trainings in PATEA for all teachers with the existing budget constraints, and proposals to include all staff will be included in future updates. When looking at culture specifically, we're scheduling workshops for staff on diversity, inclusion, and equity within the existing budget constraints. Proposals for expanded budget requests will be included in future updates. And then moving to operations, we're reviewing all existing contracts to determine appropriate bidding processes and timelines. We're also in operations realigning the leadership responsibilities to more effectively allow our academy leaders to focus on curriculum instruction with their teaching teams. We are introducing a new Dean of Students position, which would replace the Dean of Academics position. This position will work with the school's academy leaders to build and maintain a positive and safe school climate and support them as they carry out the school's academic program. The new dean will work closely with school counselors and school personnel to develop a strong school culture in which students grow to exemplify the NCS core values. And that's all I have from our director.
Thank you so much. Okay. Okay. All right, so we'll cycle back to approval of the May minutes, which are included in your board packet.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Okay, now to our executive, our committee reports. First, and as well, we need to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. So I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
All in favor?
Ms. Dixon, can I get you to swap microphones with one subject, please? Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
No problem. All in favor? Is that right? Opposed? Motion passed. Our executive committee report will be given in closed session since it has to do with administrative and legal matters. So our standing committee reports, finance.
So for the Finance Committee, we got a couple of items that we want to cover. The first one is in your package, you will actually see the budget for this month. If you, as we customarily done, we just approve them each month because there's no real significant changes. If you look at the budget for May 1st to May 31st, you'll see on the back page, bottom left, still on track to project around $256,242.39 in surplus for this fiscal year. That, as we always know, we do accrual accounting, so the expenses that come in, after the end of the fiscal, which is June 30th, we'll adjust those accordingly. So really, you kind of get a more accurate picture of the actual final number come the July board meeting. And one thing I'll call out is that what we did last year for the first time since I've been treasurer was we actually took surplus from our operating account and put it into the reserve account, just so that we set that money aside specifically. So what we want to do is, as we get closer to that July board meeting, we'll look at the money that's in the operating account, and there'll be a recommendation coming from the Finance Committee to do that again this year, is to move some money out of that operating account. We showed $250,000 in the surplus for this year's fiscal budget, but there's more money in that in the operating account. It's because we've had surpluses that have built up over the last 3 to 4 years. Last year, we moved $350,000 into the basically the savings account, if you will. So as we get those final numbers in July, we'll be coming with a recommendation to move that surplus over. We moved $350 last year because we had more, but we didn't want to do that because we wanted to look at cash flow month over month as you transition from one fiscal year to the other. So we left some extra surplus in that operating account. But we found that this has been really helpful because when you have the money in the savings account, now you look at your operating account much closer to your actuals versus your projected, because you don't have some big cushion in there. Right now, the operating account's right in the neighborhood of like 1.3 million. We've got to pay, June's payroll's got to come out of that, and July payroll, which is about $4 million. So there's about $500,000 that's going to come out in other miscellaneous expenditures between now and the end of the fiscal year. So we'll have an updated that for the July board meeting. But for right now, this is the budget that stands for the month closing May 31st that we need to approve.
Thank you. questions, or comments?
Motion to approve the May budget report. Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Dunn? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passed.
One other item, yeah, so that's one. So the second item you'll see in your packet is the projected budget for next year that will start July 1st of 2019 and go through June 30th of 2020. You'll see it's projected on an ADM of 945 students in an executive director's report. They currently have enrolled, more than that, but we know some of those will drop out over the summer as school starts. So this is along the lines of what we projected last year. You'll see our total revenue is a little over $8 million. The expense items are listed right around $8 million, so it's basically a wash of money in, money out. We have to approve this basically by law, showing that we have a budget on record, based on stuff that's coming in from the strategic planning process, and some of the fundraising targets that we've set. We will adjust this. We can adjust this as much as we want, however often we want. So these numbers will be tweaked as we move into the actual next year, but this is just to go on plan with a starting point from record, which is very, very similar to what we have this year. So we just need to approve this so that Dawn can sign it, so that this has to be done by the start of this year.
I move that we approve the projected budget report for 2019-2020. Second.
Any further discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Okay, we'll move on to Resource Committee.
So an update for Resource Committee. We talked a little bit about the last board meeting about we had Cat Bev come in, talked about, kind of as you mature and evolve towards a more holistic, one could argue more sophisticated resource development strategy. We've kind of waffled a little bit of which side of the fence are we on, right? We're doing tactical fundraisers now. We're raising, somewhere on the order of $100,000 to $200,000 every year for just activities we run in the school. So what we did was we're trying to get more discipline from operational excellence about our financial planning for next year and what programs need financial support. So what Susan did was she went and did a cost analysis of the programs that run in the school that are all extracurriculars. Band, robotics, arts, athletics, all of those fall within the realm of extracurricular activities for which we applied funding to. And so that was a bucket of money that she said, if I had this amount of money, I could run these programs. And then she also included in there athletics. And so when we looked at that amount of money, it come in around $70,000, okay? What we're trying to get to a point is, once we understand the cost to run the programs, as well as any strategic planning enablement financial action needs, we just need a number. That's what the Resource Development Committee said. As we evolve, we're getting out of talking about where and how the money's spent. That's really administration's job, working with the board of directors from approval from a budgetary perspective. We need to go spend our time focused on actually getting the resources. How are we going to do that? So when she brought the proposal forward, it was on the order of about $20,000 in non-current budgeted strategic plan enablement. And it was on the order of around $70,000 to support the extracurricular activities that right now all the individual clubs or whatever are doing it themselves to run their programs. So we're trying to say better together approach. And so what we did was said, if you kind of round a little bit, that comes around $100,000 to support those programs. What we then said is, we'll set the target higher than that. So we set our resource development fundraising target for next year for $200,000. And so now what we're doing is we've gone and actually did an inventory of all the things that we did this year that brought in extra money. It's not just money in, money out. We brought in extra money. And Amanda's put together a first pass of that. Now what we're doing is saying, okay, here's all the list of fundraising type activities that people either think we should do, want to do, or have done. And so we've actually got a meeting scheduled for actually Thursday this week because we want to get right on it because we want to have a plan that when school starts, everybody knows here are the activities that are going to go through the entire year. And we're going to have financial targets for each one of those events towards the $200,000 goal. So like, for example, our reverse raffle raised somewhere in the order of about $40,000 last year, right? So that's a block, right? We've done things from, calendar drawings and, Boston Butts, and we're going to do it in collaboration with Booster Club. We're waiting for their new board to kind of get together. They've been on vacation. Susan and I are going to sit down with them and say, okay, now we've got a $200,000 target. What are the activities and what's the scheduling and planning we're going to do throughout the year to go meet that target? And we went higher because we know there's probably some other things that she would like to do throughout the year that were probably not originally budgeted for. So the good thing is everybody seems pretty excited about working together, and we think that target is very doable. We still got a couple of loose ends to tie up about, for example, field trips that raise a little bit of money to offset some costs. Do we just work with those teams and say, just don't worry about fundraising, we'll just do it together as one team, and if you need students that can't afford it, then we'll have a process by which those students that need that financial help can get it, so it's not on the back of every single teacher that's doing a field trip or whatever. So the next meeting is to start to dive down into the activities that we raise money on this year, do a cost-benefit analysis that looks not only from a time-invested perspective, but how much of a burden was it on our staff, if our staff's doing fundraisers and not in classroom teaching. And actually do an assessment first of should we redo those, and then look at the list of ones that people have proposed as new ideas, and then come up with a master fundraising plan for next year. Seems the sense of the Resource Development Committee, given the CAT Dev discussion, is maybe to hold off on that one more year. We think we're organized enough, we've got a reasonable target that we think we could get to for this fiscal year for $200,000. And we think we would learn a lot because now we're aggregating the efforts, we'll learn a little bit more before we would engage like a CAT Dev. So that's you had mentioned that the last board week that it's going to be a cultural shift for a lot of people that have just been for years just kind of do whatever they want whenever they want to do it, because that was the environment they in. If they didn't raise any money, they couldn't do anything. So we're trying to evolve past that. So we're being very inclusive with the club leaders, the program leaders, and we have asked Susan as the Resource Development Committee to make sure we have a dedicated liaison to the committee that then interfaces back to staff, because a lot of the people that are helping on the Resource Development Committee are volunteers. They were here to help raise resources. They're not in a position to be interfacing with staff when there's questions or disagreements about, one approach or another. So Susan committed, to me that she would work through that and make sure it was clear on who the staff interface between the Resource Development Committee and the broader staff would be for that. But I'd say we're further along right now than we have ever been before, so that's a good sign.
Just a few questions, Rodney. I love the idea of doing a yearly plan and everything, us knowing exactly what's going to happen for the entire year. I heard you say clubs, athletics, and programs. I'm not sure, what do you mean by programs? I wasn't sure what, because you mentioned band, but band is class. I was trying to...
No, that's a good point. So in the list that she had provided to us, the clubs that were listed were band, like National Honor Society, National Junior Honor Society. Karate, as an example, had some very small expenditures, but they did have one. Student Government Association, Battle of the Books, Robotics, Model UN, Pep Club, those kinds of activities. Okay. They did move cheerleading will be under the athletics umbrella, so they're not a club. And then it doesn't really list any grade level activities like the field trips are not in there, even though that's really money in, money out, but they still raise money for kids that can't afford it,
right,
or to offset cost. And I like the fact that we're looking at it this way because we have to ask ourselves, if we're having to raise money to send the kids on a field trip, maybe the field trip's too expensive. I mean, we have to ask ourselves that. be fiscally responsible. Right? I mean, it's like 2 of our grades field trips constitute like half of our $70,000 field trip expenditure. Now, people rave about those field trips, but we just need to be transparent about how much does it cost and what are we having to do to send a kid there at the expense of what else.
Okay, so this is clubs, field trips, and athletics.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Which 2 field trips are those?
The DC one and
The
the other
beach.
one. Which one?
8th grade.
Biltmore.
Biltmore.
Biltmore, yeah, Biltmore and the DC.
And do we make a distinction between some field trips which seem more as just fun classroom, kind of social things, and things that are academic in their core nature, and like we not have to, but if we really, there's no way you can replicate the learning, within a classroom. You need to take the students there versus they just.
I would say that would need to be the separate request to administration about field trip analysis. We don't, again, I'll tell you, I'm very passionate about this one. In resource development this year, after the last meeting, we said we will not discuss in the meeting where the money goes and what it's used for. Because, I'll be honest, there's a lot of people are confused about who has decision rights over that and what's an opinion versus decision rights, and it just gets a lot of people's feelings hurt. So we're just saying, what's the number you need? We've got a target of $200,000 to support Susan.
But you're not putting any criteria in terms of who can ask for the money if you're not going to.
Not in resource development committee. She has to do that as part of her plan with the budget she gets.
Okay, and
Because some things I think it's just the parent's responsibility. You want your child to go. It's not a core academic kind of thing. If you want your child to participate or be part of it, I don't know if that's necessarily the school's responsibility
I think that's one of the
to raise money
questions.
for, yeah.
That's the key, right, is that we have to look at the kinds of things that we're organizing from the school that our students can participate in. We need to get a little bit more clear about what's expected our kids participate in and what's just a nice to have because somebody wants to take a group of kids and go to the beach for a day. So, because I think those lines have kind of blurred a little bit, and now you start getting into equity discussions.
right. And to be clear, when we have an approved budget, any expenditure in that budget has been approved, so nobody needs permission, correct?
That's right.
And then, but when we're looking at resource development, you all, it sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, you all are raising funds not to supplement the approved budget, but to now supplement these things that we just discussed.
So,
Clubs,
yeah.
programs, field trips,
here's-
is that correct?
Well, no, so this is where it's a little bit different. So any money that comes in and out of the school has to show up in the budget.
Sure.
Right? Unless somebody goes and collects $20 and takes the kids to ice cream shop, it's not a school-related event. So these activities that we are spending money on will be in the budget. So what you'll see is in the next level of detail of the budget we just approved, right? There will be a line item that says fundraising, and there'll be a $200,000 target. And then with all the expense line items will be where all of that money goes.
Okay,
Right.
that helps me. So the resource development money is going to be a line item.
It will.
Fundraising. Okay, all right, thank you.
And well, the crazy thing is, it's already in the budget now. It's just the way we report it and we talk about it, it confuses everybody because like one group raises money just for their event
Sure.
and it shows up as revenue for
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, well, there is a fundraising line item.
I think we have to say
There's also
that.
ask for non-kind of club stuff too. If there's something, additional
Right.
that's not represented.
That's not in there.
That basically we can't afford right now, but let's see if we can put the ask in for the resource committee to help us afford it. Is that correct? Okay.
And so one of the things that I said is we've got to get better at needs versus wants across all the programs. Right? I mean, one program may think that they need, I don't know, a new set of boxes for something, but over here you've got some activity that we think is strategic that we can't even do because we can't even afford the basics. You've got to get to that level of transparency across these things to make, otherwise you're not making priorities. You're making decisions in a vacuum. So we
Well,
just said,
and have it, we can't do everything, and so are we sacrificing some core stuff for, like you said, a need that can be transform the institution for a want because it's nice and fun and whatever.
And I think everybody's eyes kind of opened up when we actually took an inventory of all the things we did, and there's probably 40 or more things that are going on through the year in some perspective of raising money. It's like, I mean, that's, you look at the list and it's just like, holy smoke, how do we even begin to organize? And some of these things, we look at them and we may have put in 2 weeks of work, had to hire substitutes to cover for staff because they're doing some things, and then we may net $500. Well, does that really make sense? So that's the level of inspection we're going to put on the efforts working with Susan for the strategy going into it.
That sounds like good progress and discussion. Academic affairs, which did not meet, unfortunately, but we will be scheduling our next meeting hopefully in July. And we'll try to get a dedicated meeting time similar to finance going into the new academic year.
So one thing for when the academic affairs committee meets, I have shared this with Dawn. We've talked about looking at the strategic plan for next year and the measures that we're going to hold ourselves as well as Susan accountable for. And one of the things that if you remember from last year, we set the target for the school report card grade, which will come out in the year. I'd like us to get ahead of that curve, not middle way the year like we did last year. So I'd like the academic affairs committee to bring us back a defined, measurable strategy for academic progress that links to the strategic plan with some immediate goals for next year, so that we can all agree on those before the school starts.
So that was already sent to Susan for her to, and she actually had it on the strategic plan draft that she presented at the retreat, but had not filled in some numbers in terms of percentages as she continues to do the development of the strategic plan. So I resent that to her and said, we're going to need for you to fill in the numbers, and that would represent what Rodney is mentioning as strategic goals. And then we can reset that every year or change some of the items on it. But it represented more of a beyond just test scores. So it was like 10 things that basically would represent what we think is on the way to an A school. Okay. So board development, Michelle.
The new board members that were selected were notified, as well as the 2 board members or candidates that were not selected were notified. The new board members have been sent links and information to be able to access the online board training, and Amanda is putting together a new binder for us. I've sent a list of things that need to go in the binder, and she's working on getting that together. And that should be available by our July board meeting.
Might we want to put something from finance that gives kind of an overview of the schools?
I think that may have been in there.
They came to the first finance committee meeting and we spent 2 hours with them.
Okay, all right, so we feel we
And I
can
think
check
there-
off the understanding of our plan.
And I think that information is in there anyway. Yeah.
Okay. If, I know Michelle did outreach to folks, but if you feel that there are other things that would be beneficial for a new board member to understand, we did have a historical overview, because that's always kind of helpful how this whole thing, this crazy thing that starts. But if you can think of other things, I think let Michelle and then send it as well to Amanda. We're trying to have everything ready for the July meeting.
Yeah, I almost don't. What I look forward to at the whole board.
What about the charter? You have the
The
charter.
charter,
of
the
course,
bylaws. Do you have that email? What?
The list of board members with terms and contact information, policy manual, historical perspective, public records policy, conflict of interest policy and statement, bylaws, charter application, charter agreement, board minutes from last 3 meetings with the finance documents from each meeting, and previous academic results for the last 5 years.
And of course, we would encourage our new board members, if they feel like we're missing information that we can clinic you on or we can provide, please feel free to speak up. Thank you, Michelle. That was very good. I'm excited about our Canvas class, so if you haven't logged in.
And thank you, Brad, for helping.
We can use it, thank you, Brad. We can use it for other ways to archive information, have discussion boards, all sorts of things. So I think we kind of haven't scratched the surface in a way, in ways that we can use that to assist us run more efficiently. Thank you. Okay, old business. New business?
There is some old business. I'm sorry, I didn't know if I was supposed to introduce that or not. In your packet, you will see a resubmission of the 8th grade field trip request. At the last meeting, Mrs. Denning had asked that we be more clear with the standards and how the field trips meet the standards. And to address Mrs. Dixon, your question about if field trip experiences can be replicated in the classroom or not. This is a field trip educational connections verification form that we do in-house that we have not in the past been asked to submit to the board, but is what I use to verify whether or not a field trip meets academic standards and provides a rigorous and engaging opportunity for students to learn outside of the classroom. So this has been resubmitted in full for consideration.
And that's for Williamsburg, correct?
No, ma'am, this is for the 8th grade Western North Carolina trip.
Built more and then what happens?
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion when ready to approve the,
Motion to approve the field trip is submitted.
Second?
any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for your resubmission, and it's approved.
Thank you. The second item of old business is our proposed dress code update policy. You'll see in the packet the dress code as it stands for the 2018-19 school year, as well as the dress code resubmission that the school improvement team worked with and received feedback from staff concerning, so we can put this out for parents and families and our staff to know what the expectation is moving into the 1920 school year.
So this is old and new, is that correct?
Old is the longer of the two. The new is the shorter of the two.
Okay.
So can you walk us through, when you say the dress code will be enforced consistently, what does that look like when you are training your teachers? Because I think there was some bit of discussion over the years that some teachers will consistently enforce it. Other people will say, I'm not going to tell you again, Johnny, and don't quite. So are there criteria for, first offense, everyone is sent to the office for the replacement clothes? Do you have things like that? Because that, to me, is the only way you're going to get enforced consistently if there are rules for how this should go from second grade, from kindergarten all the way up to
We're absolutely able to go ahead and build out a cause and effect for the dress code infractions for the students. The accountability part comes on the shoulders of the adults on campus, however. And that was a conversation that we had multiple times. The same conversation I'm sure we could have here about if we're not all going to enforce it, then why have it?
the accountability comes from us as academy leaders and us as colleagues and peers holding each other responsible. We can't walk down the sidewalk and turn a blind eye and allow something to continue or someone to continue in whatever they're wearing. That is a conversation that we as academy leaders need to have with our staff, that if we are going to be excellent in all areas, that means that we are vigilant in all areas at all times. And that is I don't even know if it's a coaching opportunity necessarily, because it's part of your professional responsibility to ensure that students are following whatever codes we have put forth in our handbook.
I think that's great. I just think sometimes it helps if they know, if they have a box in which to operate with very clear rules, that they know everybody has the same thing, versus in my classroom, I'm using my professional judgment. I'm busy, we're getting ready to have a test. I'm not sure I'm gonna, really get picky about Johnny's hole above his knee and disrupt, and is there any are you allowed to do that? What are the parameters in which I can operate as a teacher in order for anyone on the outside to view that we're enforcing it consistently?
That's always the sticky wicket, right? I think that, again, we can be very clear with the student consequence ladder for continuing to not follow the dress code. We need to put structures in place that allow our staff the time and opportunity to do the things that we are expecting our students to do. There was a moment at one point after the morning announcements where we did a dress code check, I believe, at some point. It was a time every day that was dedicated, probably at the beginning of the year, I'm making an assumption, for staff to do that, because it became part of routine. It became part of what we did every day to ensure that you were following the standards that we put forth. And the expectation would be that if I see a student walking out of your classroom that's out of dress code, that's a conversation with the student, but it's a more serious conversation with you as the teacher.
I like the dress code. I'm just saying, throughout the years, we've had a lot of teachers say to us, I try to stick by the rules, such and such down the hallway does nothing.
Right, and
I'm just like, if you can kind of give somebody some parameters in which they have to work. This is for students, which is what we're giving them. So on the flip side, why not give the teacher the same thing? But I love dress code check, like in the morning, if that's what you guys decide to do. That sounds great.
that goes along with excellence in culture, right? Is if this is what we're expecting from students, and we expect every adult on this campus to make sure that we are holding the students accountable to the expectations we set forth.
Right, but you're giving students very clear, and then you're just telling teachers, make sure you do this. So, I mean, sometimes people interpret that differently.
Understood.
But, okay, so we need an approval. Are there any other discussions, questions on the new dress code policy?
I just had, just big picture, what is the purpose and goal of our dress code? When we were formulating the dress code, what was the goal and purpose?
According to what has been in the handbook in previous years, standards on student attire are intended to reduce discipline problems and improve school order. I'm not sure if research necessarily supports that statement in its entirety. Dress code is a way to try to help our students understand and code switch between home and a place that's not home. Here you can wear your PJs at home and your house shoes to the Walmart, but here you're not going to wear your PJs to school and your house shoes, right? So it's understanding a code switch and allowing our students to know that what you do wherever else, it's different here because this is a different environment.
I mean, personally, at the college, that is probably the number 3 thing that students come to me to complain about, that somebody, because it becomes a disruption. And then people start focusing on that, and then they're not focusing on what the teacher said. And it's very weird how many students complain about other students. and, you know, some kind of shirt they have that they find offensive and all this kind of stuff. It's probably like up, at least in the top 5 things they complain. So,
In our enforcement, I just want us to be very aware, and I'm sure, I've never looked at the statistics, but how dress codes are enforced against males versus females.
Oh, absolutely. In the dress code, that was a comment that Mrs. Dixon had made at the last board meeting, and I try to be exceedingly conscientious of the dress code and it not being gender biased or gender specific or targeted at bigger kids or smaller kids or kids with curves or kids without curves. I mean, all of that has to be taken into consideration. And so that's what makes writing a dress code so difficult, because what works for this person in this body does not work for this person in this body. And I mean, it is a challenge. It's a challenge to enforce it. It's a challenge to make sure that you have it written in a way that you're not passing a value judgment on your choices or how you look or anything like that, but that we are helping students understand, like I said, that it's a tone switch, it's a code switch. I will say that we did look at the Wake County approved dress code that was gender non-biased, gender neutral. Some of that wording has made its way into the new proposed dress code. I did see one area on here when I was reviewing it today that I think that we need to look at again, but there are some things that we completely struck out of the new dress code proposal that was in the old dress code.
I mean, personally, I think the tank tops is just a little much. I mean, I don't see why a kid can't wear a tank top.
I do too.
I think the spaghetti straps, because it's hard to wear a spaghetti strap for a girl and not show your bra strap, which conflicts with another one, so I'm more comfortable with that. But I think a tank top, when I look at tank tops, I really struggle to see why that would be a problem.
If you're gonna do something with the tank tops, you can, I have seen in dress codes before where they say that the shoulder piece has to be a certain width.
2 or 3 finger widths.
And to me, and that's with the 4-inch, I have a real problem with that, because when we're talking about a 12-inch femur versus somebody who has a 8-inch femur,
That's why it's from the bend of the knee.
but it's still not proportionate to every child. So that's the one I have a real problem with. I know this is such hard work, and I appreciate your
No,
hard work.
we were hung up on that one as well. There are some that said if you did 7 inches from the bend of the hip on every person, it hits in a different place, but it still is kind of the same look. But then it comes to this. Speaking for Ms. Sandor and I, we are experts in curriculum and development and teaching, right? So this is important because we are teaching students skills. How detailed does this need to be, and how much time do you as a board and our staff want us to spend on measuring dress code, shorts or whatever? So that's the other part of the balance. We're going for excellence in academics and excellence in culture and excellence in operations. That's going to be a challenge if I'm calling 20 families a day to come and get their kids picked up for dress code. So it needs to be written in a way that is easy to identify, easy to say, oh, wait, she's out of dress code, he's out of dress code, without need to pull out the tape measure. But this is where our staff landed on the feedback for the proposal for the board, so.
With the shorts, you can also do that the shorts have to have a certain inseam length. Because I know a lot of times they will sell shorts and they'll, the same short with a 5-inch inseam, 7-inch inseam.
We didn't even think about the inseam length.
And then
That's pretty much how they sell shorts.
Yeah, and then that would cover, and they do that for men and women shorts, and that would cover if, no matter how tall they were or how long their femur was.
So are you proposing a change to incorporate that, or is there flexibility in that they could administer?
I would recommend an inseam to the shorts. I mean, you know, I know that a 3-inch inseam on shorts is very short. 5-inch, maybe okay, you know, and then there's a 7-inch, and then, you know, that would make me more comfortable. I don't think I could vote yes on this one. But everybody else might.
So you want that specific bullet about the shorts to be reworked?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Are you proposing a 5 or a 7-inch inseam?
No. Because I can't remember what that looks like.
I bought shorts recently before we went to the beach, and I bought them 5 and 7.
You do.
Though I think 7 may be asking too much of folks to,
I think 5 is good.
but I don't know, again, it may be one of those things where we want to look and see, I don't know what they sell for youth.
I'll let Grace wear 5, I don't let her wear 3.
We can make that adjustment to the dress code and resubmit, or approve with the change.
All shorts. Some men too, because they're shorter and like the
Yeah.
knee, you know, almost like the cargo kind of
So-
longer, longer.
5-inch inseams and remove tank tops, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, that's just my opinion about tank tops.
Well, you're pretty much with the tank tops, you're covering, if you exclude tank tops, then you're covering the undergarment, no undergarment showing.
But does that mean boys can wear loose tank tops and see their whole body underneath?
The dress code is cutting hair, like it's splitting hairs.
And that's why you hear people react to it, just say, give them uniforms. I mean, that's what happens. I mean,
We were there
I
during
know.
the beginning.
I get it, but that's the reason we always circle back on this discussion in the 8 years I've been on this board, is because all the nuances of interpretation, I mean, you can say tank tops, and next thing you know, somebody's got a tank top and it comes halfway down their side, so, and, I mean, I get it, so.
Well, this is fun because it says they're prohibited as outerwear, and I don't know what that.
It would mean you could wear a cami or a spaghetti strap underneath a cardigan.
Okay, so I'm fine with that. This is always freezing.
But what if the child takes off the cardigan? Because she gets too hot.
Well, it's not outerwear because you have a tank top on without a sweater. Do you consider that outerwear? Why is that outerwear?
Cancel?
No, if you have just a tank top,
Oh.
but you don't have a sweater on top, they're saying that's outerwear.
But it's because it's your regular shirt. That is what you were intending to be your primary shirt for your body for that particular moment.
And I think of outerwear like literally.
Like jackets or
Yes.
yeah.
But I, you know. So we have a motion, but do you need to amend it because did you make a motion?
I did.
Oh, you did? Who made, no one made a motion yet, okay. Well, I'm ready if someone wants to make a motion about this. What is the deadline for needing this for the student handbook?
Sooner rather than later.
So would it cause a major problem if we waited till the July meeting?
We want to make sure that families have enough time to go back to school shopping for their children and understand what our expectations are.
But this is no more than the previous ones.
Yeah.
So
That's
no more-
correct.
No more restrictive, so they will be operating pretty much on the same dress code from last year.
That's correct.
Well,
I'm fine with tabling it and with the modifications and seeing what the inseam, we want to wait for the next board meeting. If that will, and modify it with the inseam as opposed to.
Or you can do a motion with the stipulation.
Well, I'm not, there may be, as that is, there may be something else, you know, I want to make sure that 5-inch inseam is the right thing. And so I'm not.
I don't know why this is always the thing.
I'm just, yeah, I suggest the inseam only because it would make it more consistent, you know.
Right.
So you want me just willing to approve it at 5 inches, or you want me?
I would be willing to approve it at 5 inches, but I have a slight reservation just because I don't know what, is that what 5 inches, is that what teen girls wear? I don't know.
It's
They
3
like
is like a booty short. 3, 5, and 7. 7 are almost like Bermuda shorts.
Yeah. Those kind
So,
Yes, we're, but maybe not.
so thinking about administering it, I mean, is that in a tag?
It is not.
Well,
So I'm
it is
just
when you
saying-
buy it. It is on the tag when you buy it.
Well,
I mean,
just
it's
thinking about
clearly
some of the-
outlined at the Gap all the time. They have the 3-inch shorts, they have 5-inch shorts, they have 7-inch
Well,
shorts.
I'm just saying, so I'm a teacher, a kid comes in, I look at the shorts, they're questionable. What do I do? Do I say, hey, are they 5-inch shorts? And they say, yes, they are. And I'm like, what do I do? I mean, but maybe they're not 5-inch shorts. I don't.
That's why I was saying there has to be some professional judgment and really, you know, because we do not want to spend a whole bunch of time running around with
That's my point.
rulers.
With the tape measure.
And, if it, you know, and there may be some, there may be people who are a little bit more,
Lenient than others.
lenient than others, and there may be people who are really taking it overboard, and as Dr. Swartzwelder said, those will be conversations, coaching conversations, try to get them, you know, more in line. You're gonna have to keep kind of calibrating everybody until you get that little spot where everybody kind of knows
Would you get
what the intent of this is.
Would you get the same kind of idea, because instead of the inseam, to do like however many inches from the hip down, or? Did y'all talk about that? Because at that point, because you're not saying from hip to femur, you're saying, or from, you know, hip to whatever, you're saying from here, 4 inches, or from here, 5 inches. And that would still be the same on everyone. It's not gonna hit at the same place. It won't hit at the same place.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's still
so you've
5
got-
inches from the starting point.
So you've
No
got,
matter whether it's someone who is 5'1" or 6'2", 4 inches from the hip is 4 inches from the hip.
but that lets little short girl wears little bitty shorts, and the tall girls have on granny shorts.
What's your problem with granny shorts?
I will make a motion, you guys can vote for it or not, that we approve the dress code with the amendment that all shorts, skirts, dresses must come at least, well,
You just say mid-thigh.
we'll separate out the bullets.
You say mid-thigh, that's mid-thigh, depending on how.
Well, all shorts.
Well, that's not really, none of this is really,
None of
I
it's
think,
clear.
what you're talking about for boys, so.
No. With a 5-inch inseam for shorts, I don't know, and just leave the rest.
So the issue with the 5-inch inseam is only enforceability.
Yes, and they don't need those on.
So I would contend it's not just a girl thing.
There is a clear distinction between some shorts that girls do not need to wear to school, and more often than not, the boys' shorts are way too long and keep telling them to pull their shorts up. Really. Okay, so it is a motion, I'm sorry,
With the amendment to change 4 inches from the back of knee to 5-inch inseam.
okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Begrudgingly.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay. We had all that time just to sit there.
8 years of this discussion, and then it'll be back next year.
Yeah. Okay.
And we'll agonize over the same issues again next year.
Motion passed
Yes, ma'am. The last item in old business is the extra duty pay positions. I believe that this has been discussed with the board previously. These are the areas, the teams, the coaches, which have been identified as those warranting extra duty pay. And at the bottom is the pay scale.
Okay. Any discussion? What is new about this, if I don't remember? Is it the
Well,
number
I
of
think,
people?
yeah, I think this was we approved the structure, and then it was up to like 30 positions, and then she had to go back and actually list which ones would be. Yeah, so I read in the meeting notes, I read in the meeting notes, I remember seeing this when it confused me a little bit, the way the meeting notes were written, that the plus positions from last year, that would not carry forward in the next year. And she had said that they would have this definition of faculty leaders. But it's not clear which ones they are. She's just saying somewhere between 2 to 8. With no job description, et cetera. So,
That's an area that we're continuing to talk about to align it to the strategic plan.
Right.
The last discussion that we had was, obviously, we want all of our faculty to be leaders, to all of them have the opportunity to step up, lead professional development, be part of opportunities outside of their classroom. So defining what a faculty leader is, to be able to identify extra duty pay is something that we as a leadership team are still working on structuring in a way that still lets it be known that we expect all of our faculty to be leaders in our movement towards excellence.
Well, but I think the faculty leaders were definitely accountable for certain things. So while I understand what you're saying, the extra duty pay was for particular faculty leaders to be the leader over an initiative service project.
And that's right, exactly. And they have an accountability piece, something that they're producing. But again, we're trying to outline what that is to forward the plan that we have in place, the plan that we're working under our strategic plan.
Well, and a specific recommendation was made to Ms. Pulliam about at a minimum over the 2 major gateway courses, which are English and math. Well, not EL, yeah.
Are there there's really only one coach for the robotics?
Well, no.
One primary coach, like the head coach.
Well, it said
Primary, intermediate, and senior.
primary academy, but I meant one, so there's only
One head coach, but there's other coaches, but only one paid head coach.
only one paid.
And for each academy.
Okay.
But is it the same person?
No.
I just knew there were
Not
several
for each
teachers that
academy,
help
for
this year.
FFL, it's only primary academy.
One that gets the pay. Okay. That takes the lead person. Got it.
That schedules their events, that collects some receipts from money, that's responsible for the interactions of that organization.
Is there? Did we currently have a high school JV boys basketball team this year?
We did not have one for the 18-19 school year, but will for the 19-20.
Did we have a high school JV volleyball team this year?
Yes. I believe so.
I think that we started with one, they merged into the 2, or the 2, they merged into 1, but I know we at least started the year with the JV.
Okay.
So if this is not the final, is there any action that's required? Because it says that the final will be presented.
I'm thinking what she's looking to get this approved so that she can then go interview for all positions.
Oh, okay.
I get it, because that's the agreed upon process we said we were going to go through. I'm going to trust that
So the final recommendations would be the actual recommendations for the individuals.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I don't know that we have to approve this by vote. I mean, we've given her the pay structure. She's got to go bring forth the people to fill the roles, and we have to approve that because it's a contractual obligation. I don't.
Well, except I think what she's wanting is just confirmation on her number. So if she comes back and there's 20 faculty leaders, obviously that's a significant change. So just for planning purposes.
10.
So we've never approved the middle school volleyball coaches in the past because if they received a supplement, that was from Booster Club. But now we're
not approving actually the person, just that position is one of the extra duty positions. Everything that people do here doesn't always constitute extra duty pay.
And that's the key. So, like, for example, I don't know, what's another example? We've talked about those, the MTS support team, as an example. That's work that staff does that she has said that is not an extra duty.
Or sitting on the sick team, maybe
Yeah,
that's not an extra duty pay.
She's got to draw a line somewhere around what is just stuff we're going to get done within our existing pay and what they consider extra duty versus what she's brought forward. The only thing is this, if you add these numbers up, then the original thing we said was not to exceed 30.
Yeah, the 30.
There's about 40 something. If you were to hire, you know, the beginning teachers is dependent upon how many they have, and the faculty leaders would depend on how many. So it would be over 30 maxed out. But
Well, you can make that stipulation in a motion that the final number is not to exceed 30.
we already did that last time.
Okay.
So it can't be over 30. Or we have to go back and amend that.
So the only real place you have some flexibility with reduction is the mentors and the faculty leaders to get under 30.
I just don't, I'm fine with it. I just don't know the backdrop, but that the athletic oversight committee in regards to the decision-making process around JV teams. I know that there was discussion before about our facilities and scheduling, and we couldn't manage what we had. And, you know, we were going to have some others and what sports got them and what sports didn't. I don't have any context to that. But that's the only reason I asked that question. Were they existing or are they net new? But I guess that's in number 1 down here. The teams must have sufficient membership to make a competitive team in season. So she has the authority to add or not add those teams.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve it as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
So she's now got to go, we need to be clear with everybody. Now these positions, administration has to go back, have roles and responsibilities for every one of them, and pick the best candidate for the role.
Other old, new business? Are we still, we're on old business, I'm sorry.
There is no more old business. No further.
No more, you said?
No more, moving on. That's it.
New business?
The first item that we have is EC Student Services. Dr. Swartzlander will take the first contract that is there, and I will take the next 2.
In your packet, you'll see a service contract for vocational training services offered through JCI. Mr. Squibb prepared a short summation of what JCI is and what it offers to our students. JCI is a community-based organization providing vocational training, employment programs, and manufacturing solutions for Johnston County. Students on the OCS curriculum, which is the Occupational Course of Study curriculum pathway, will need to utilize the services of JCI, and they will be provided those services in order to graduate. These services include our students working with a JCI-provided OCS job coach off campus 3 days a week for 4.5 hours a day. The job coach will transport the students to and from the worksite while providing supervision during the worksite time. Along with the provided job coach, JCI will handle all travel, insurance requirements, and job placements for our OCS students.
Is this the first year we're doing this?
That's correct. This is the first year that we have students in the OCS program matriculating into the high school area. And in order for them to graduate, they need to have off-site, job-specific skills, duties, internships as part of their graduation requirements. It's a different set of state standards when you're an occupational course of study student.
So this did not go through finance?
I've not seen. I just don't know if,
I would think because it's a contract, we would need we're gonna have to table it for review, and then it needs to go through finance. This would be, these kids are in the, students are in the,
is this on page 3, this 23,279, is that a total number for the whole year?
Correct.
That's not a per student number, is it?
No, it's for the year.
Okay.
And on the last, at the end of that packet, you'll see a Johnston County's Industries 1920 proposal. On the back of that page, $23,279 outlines the total cost of the OCS JCI partnership.
it's not really, spreadsheet, you gotta look at it this way. And this is, we would assume this cost for how many years for these students?
This is per year.
For how many, so for the next 4 years?
Yes, for the, I'm sorry, right, it's perpetual as long as we have students in the OCS program. Which, just for consideration, we do. And if, after reviewing, we do not partner with JCI, we will have to have someone on campus identify community resources to provide employment and placement opportunities for these students, transportation for the students, insurance for the students while they are on the job site, transportation back. So all of that would need to be staffed from News Charter School.
Or this could be a bid.
Or it could be a bid if there are other service providers in the county.
Is JCI providing the transportation? I can't
Yes.
find it.
I don't know, but do any of us know? I mean, there could be other people who provide a similar service.
We did work in conjunction with the Department of Social Services and their vocational rehab office, who works with JCI. So the state is also part of JCI and the occupational course of study program. So we wanted to ensure that the training services that the students were receiving were vetted and supported by the Department of Social Services and by the state and North Carolina Department of Public Instruction.
I've visited JCI before, but is this something that they do for other students in the county?
Yes.
They have a set program for specific
Yes.
for students?
We are not the only school that JCI works with. JCI works with, I believe, all of the high schools in Johnston County, offering these same services to their OCS students.
And how many students?
6? I'm sorry, I believe it's 5 or 6.
Or a matter.
So it's about $4,000 per student.
For the year.
What is the difference in their,
You all need a moment, or do you want to table till July when they're looking at the contract?
Well,
Yes, sign it.
Does it need to go through finance first or not?
I don't, like I said, in the budget we approved earlier with $8 million, I don't have that level of detail to know if it was already accounted for within that.
And this is part of the Exceptional Children's Program, so that's also another factor in budgeting.
I don't think we're questioning, it's just operational excellence is when you go through the appropriate channels.
Yeah, what we're saying is, I don't know if this is a $23,000 net new expenditure we've never had before, at which point, where is it at in our budget?
We have not had this expenditure before, where it is in the proposed budget that
We
you all
have
have.
spent this before?
We have not.
So it probably is not in the proposed budget.
Yeah, so
Where would it
as a new, ongoing, because it's not a one-time cost, it would be a reoccurring expense. I think we just need to make sure that everyone's clear as to, it may be in there, but if you're saying you have no idea and you haven't seen it before, then that.
And I would like to look at the contract.
And we need to look at the contract. So we will table until the July meeting. That should give us ample time to do both those items. Okay. And other new items?
Another EC student service contract. It's an amended contract for services for the visually impaired. So just a note that was prepared by Mr. Squibber, EC coordinator. News Charter School will continue to use the Envision Services Incorporated to provide our orientation and mobility related services. We will also contract with them for the teacher of the visually impaired services, thus the need to update the contract proposal to add this related service.
And this was a reoccurring expense or a new contract? Reoccurring.
This was reoccurring.
I'm trying to understand, this is a net new $9,800?
No, these services were provided last year as well.
So there's no net new financial impact to the contract?
Correct. Yes.
So
Not
it's
the
the same amount.
We've already accounted for it in the budget.
Yes.
Oh,
Just a new provider?
The amendment.
Just an updated contract.
Okay.
For
I guess the
school
question
year.
is what's materially changed in the updated contract?
The days.
Just the date, okay.
Yeah, it's for the new school year.
I make a motion to approve the O&M TVI contract.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passed.
Tom, I have a quick question, to go back to the other contract, just so never mind, I found my answer, never mind. It's on the back side.
The last EC student service contract is a service contract renewal, for psychological services. It's the same contract that we had last year. It's, again, just an updated renewal of it. So again, the note from Mr. Squibb, News Charter School will continue to use Cleveland Psychological Services for the school year, the 2019-2020 school year. The contract and rate sheet has remained the same, and it just needs approval with the updated date.
Make a motion we approve the contract with the MPA for psychological services.
Why is it Elizabeth Koff and not Cleveland Psychological Services anymore? Did she just change her professional name?
I'm sorry, say it again.
So at the top, it says psychological services contract between Elizabeth Koff, MA, LPA, and News Charter School, and not Cleveland.
I thought the entity was Cleveland Psychological Services, but it's the same provider.
It is. Last year's contract looked pretty much identical to this one
Okay.
between us and Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good question. So the contract, is this a professional entity or is this an individual? Are we contracting with an individual or a professional
The
entity?
individual provider.
Because the LPA is licensed, what's LPA?
Licensed professional.
Association, so that's probably an entity.
Oh.
I'm not sure that.
We're contracting with her.
Yeah, because you have PAs, which are professional entities. I've just never heard of it.
I
Sure,
guess-
that's not her credential as a.
That's what I'm trying to say.
That's what I was thinking.
speech therapist?
It's a licensed psychological associate. It's a 2-year master's degree. Yeah, so it looks like she is
A licensed professional.
yeah, but, you know,
But
we're
it's
contracting with
With
her
an
individually.
instead of, organization.
I vaguely recall she said she would do that because that was less money than contracting with the company.
Yeah, so she,
I
yeah.
thought-
Well, I just, as an individual business owner, they steer you totally away from a liability perspective of doing business as an individual. You have no liability protection.
Yeah, but it doesn't make any difference on us unless you're relying on any kind of liability insurance.
They have to provide proof of insurance with us. I keep that on file. And then we have to have certain payment forms and things on file for them as individuals. But we have always, I know for at least the last 4 or 5 years, we've contracted with an individual for these particular psychological services.
Okay.
But do we require them that they have liability policy for the lost pays and those
They
kind
have
of
to provide their proof of insurance for their workers' insurance, yes.
I don't know why in my mind I thought last year we were contracting with Cleveland Psychological Association. But
I do think it would be helpful, especially for the EC with Mr. Squibb, and I know I've been, we talked a little bit at the last meeting about having maybe a comprehensive plan on discussing EC, but in anticipation of students moving through, like, it would have been nice if we knew 2 years ago to plan for this budget expense for these students as they moved along. So, I mean, that would be something that I would expect the coordinator, EC, or director, or whatever the title is, to sort of prepare us so we're not sitting with now there's this huge budget item that's kind of blindsiding because we would not think that, 5 students would need these kind of services, and that now it's a 3 to 4 year reoccurring expense that we have to assume. So I think that speaks to a little bit of your budget planning, but for EC, because there are so many vendors and outside contracts, that would be something that there would be some sort of process for him to kind of, or whoever it is, in that place to kind of keep us alerted to. So almost at the end of the year, or close to the end of the year, readout on EC services, anticipated plan, shifts because of students requiring new things. If we just accepted 3 hearing impaired students, then don't, come in the summer and say, oh, by the way, we got a contract with all that, when that might be something that we can anticipate as early as possible.
Well, the same thing applies for
Anything, but I mean, I think, nothing has more outside contractors than EC. And sometimes, we don't have an understanding of all the services required by our student population, but that could be something, if you anticipate that these same 5 students were going to need JC, occupational, I think that's something we could have prepared for a little bit better.
May I clarify? I pulled up her billing, and it falls under Cleveland Psychological Services with her name listed second, Elizabeth Koff, MALPA. So that must be the name of her entity, but our contract is with her.
well, I just want to make sure that if our contract is with her, then her liability insurance needs to be in her name.
Will do.
Maybe she uses that as a doing business as, and that's fine.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, there's a whole set of new regulations I've been reading about this week about assumed business names,
yeah,
where they have to be recorded and.
oh, always with register of deeds. Yeah.
Okay, any other new business?
So we're approving that one?
You started to make a motion.
I make a motion to approve it. It's,
Okay.
it's just an extension of dates.
And
Okay.
So do we need to make sure that her liability insurance is with?
So they need to be doing that for all,
Yeah.
anybody we contract services with,
I know.
whether it's an individual or an entity.
A second.
any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed for the psychological services. Okay, and the next item of business, or?
Next, Dr. Swartzlander has a field trip request that she will be overviewing.
So in your packet, you'll see 2 requests from Mrs. Williams for band. One is the official request, the other is the educational connections explanation of the field trip. Mrs. Williams is proposing traveling to Williamsburg, Virginia with the Cougar Concert Band to allow them to perform in a competition and receive feedback from highly qualified, adjudicated musical composers and directors, allowing our students the opportunity to see how they rank and how we're doing and where our strengths are and where we need to continue to support and focus our efforts on improving our band program.
Make a motion to approve the field trip for band.
Are these separate, the fundraising request form, or do you do that separately, or is that, it's all together for this trip?
It's all together for this trip. It's a field trip campus activity fundraising request form. It's an all-in-oneer, and I don't believe that there is fundraising being requested for this field trip. So this is the field trip request and the educational connections document.
Yeah, that's why I think it's the same thing. Okay.
I get it. It took me a minute.
But this, not to belabor this point, but this just yet again highlights. So if the cost is $120 a student, and we need to look across all these things that we want our students to do and ask ourselves, should a parent be expected to pay for that, or we will put that in our budget because students within these programs, we want to give them that experience? And the money comes from our aggregate fundraising activities versus do they need to raise money to offset the cost? That's not, we're not going to decide that here, but we're going to have that discussion in resource development.
Yeah.
So in that $200,000 budget, that's why we made the number so much bigger than originally was. If we decide we want our students in these activities to go, we should just be able to pay for them to go.
Yeah.
I mean, they're core to what we do.
They will have a waiting list of 900 people because their kids will come here and not have to pay a darn thing.
You know what?
I
I would love to have $900 waiting list.
Okay.
I move that we accept the field trip request form for the Williamsburg trip.
Did not.
Yeah,
He already mentioned.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's
Oh, that's right.
So
You
you're
did
second.
I'll second, yes.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you.
Next on the agenda for new business, we have facilities repair and maintenance. And in your packet, you will see a Biggs HVAC contract that is needed to complete the glass exhaust fans that we are installing in our 2 high school chemistry labs.
What's the name of that company?
Biggs.
I think this was the one that was approved in executive committee.
No, this is when we talk about the chemistry lab.
Oh, yes, we did approve it.
Yeah, that's already.
Okay,
We
that's
just need
right.
to ratify it, I guess.
Yes, and executive committee discussed and sending this to the committee, to the board for full approval.
And we did it just so we could get started, hopefully we
Yeah.
can by the time school started, so time was up there.
So.
I move that we accept the executive committee's recommendation to approve the Biggs HVAC contract.
That would be the second.
Or ratifying.
Are we ratifying or are we?
I think we're ratifying the executive committee's decision.
Recommendation.
Since we didn't have a,
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
All right, moving along.
Next up, we have an amendment to our agreement with Jan King. So when going through our services that Jan King provides us for cleaning, it was noted that we have additional needs for cleaning, which include cleaning and dusting the canopy entrances on all of the buildings, keeping the stage clear of trash and debris, sweeping and mopping behind the bleachers once per week, where it previously was once a month. Updated maintenance for the auxiliary gym with the floors. They were not included in the previous bid, so that would be stripping and waxing the floors 3 times a year, and just tending to the general cleaning for it.
And that amounts to
$650.
$650 more per month. More, or that wraps up everything?
Yeah.
$650.
Yeah, $1,650 more a month.
And Robbie did send an email about this. Robbie, kind of advocating for it.
Was it already in the budget?
We have maintenance already in the budget, but this is adding more square footage that needs to be cleaned, and this is the cost for it.
The original quote from Janica a year ago came in under what we had in last year's budget, so we actually have a little cushion in what we had set previously to be able to absorb part of this. Potentially all of this, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but there was an overage that they came in under.
Make a motion to approve the amendment to the maintenance agreement.
Second?
Discussion?
So the only point I want to make about this one is, I remember when we had this discussion with them before, we actually, if you remember right, we put this out to bid. And we went through extrusion detail of like 3 different vendors. And this vendor won, and now we're coming back saying, we got to pay them more. So either one or 2 things happen. You underbid the contract, right, to just get the contract. Never planning to do the services to begin with. Or you realize it was more expensive to do those services than you might have projected, and you want money back.
Well,
Or did they
more
agree
money
to
for different work, so he never bid on the original because we didn't have the floor and the auxiliary gym and then other stuff that we're asking him to do. So he didn't bid on that originally.
We've changed some of the frequency and areas for cleaning.
We're adding services.
Well, I just want to make the point that we had JV teams, we had all these other things. It comes at a cost, right? And I just sometimes get concerned that what are the other things we add across the campus that need some extra cost too? I mean, we've done a lot of things in that gym, but yet we've gone without chemistry labs for 2 years.
Absolutely.
So we didn't prioritize that money there. So I'm just going to go on record saying, I want us to get better at looking at what are the needs across the campus so that we prioritize. I feel like we just keep reacting to, it's a hot button for somebody someday, and it shows up in front of us. And
Or the info screens, the electronic screens that have been talking about for at least 4 years.
so
That we still don't.
with,
Which could highlight our donors, which could continuously show some of our things.
Make a motion, Donna.
I've said that, I just, some things, I agree with Rodney, that we talked about, that there's no movement on, yet we spend money on just a bunch of other stuff.
I remember saying we spent $8,000 on, I think it was like $8,000 repainting that gym floor and stuff last year.
Oh, I do remember that. I think Michelle really did. She did.
So I just want to call out, we have got to do a better job of looking horizontally about what are the top needs, aligned to the strategy for the core, and we got to prioritize, guys. And I don't feel like we're doing that.
I agree, but do keep in mind that our gym is just not a gym. It's the face of our campus because that's where we have all of our, parents come, that's where we meet. So, awards.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second and discussion. Can I call for the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. And
Last, we have a technology software proposal that Dr. Schwarzenegger will be outlining.
Last, you'll see in your packet, a contract for GoGuardian device monitoring and filtering software for the administrative package.
And
This was discussed in finance.
This is for a computer lab?
This is for all the Chromebooks on campus. They charge us based off the number of Chromebook devices we have. It actually applies to any time the students are logged into any Chrome browser, device, anything. So they actually, their business model is probably not good.
This is just the administrator one.
Yeah, that's just the
Yeah, we
administrator.
talked about, this is the one we talked about where, do we just buy it for the administrator to look at, or is just the one where you buy all the student, all the
We had
teachers
a
and
discussion about purchasing the teacher module as well, which I think the administrator will be ample to cover what we need to cover.
So who's it, you're the administrator?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you're basically gonna be big brother and monitoring everything they do on the computer,
I am already, this is just additional controls.
which does what? Cuts it off, or what
It
it do?
filters, it tracks where they go. It allows me, it sends alerts when students are accessing information that they should not be accessing.
And then what happens?
I can shut them down.
But what I'm saying is this built into some kind of disciplinary policy?
Yes,
I mean, I'm sure, I think you have a tech.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
We have a acceptable use policy in place.
And so in your mind, you would then go to dean of students, and the dean of
Yes, ma'am.
students would call the student and
Yes, ma'am.
and the principal.
Anytime we have a violation as it stands right now, and our email filters catch, we have word filtering in place, where our email filters catch, inappropriate images or inappropriate words. The first thing I do is I go to the academy leader for whichever student is and says, this is what's going on, this is it. I give them the logs of everything I have. It's not my place to do discipline.
But, so you feel that we need another level? Is there something that, like, prompted us to say, oh my God, they're getting out of control, we need a new level of supervision?
We do, with the advent of proxies and a lot of VPNs and things like that, students are finding more and more creative ways to bypass filters.
Okay,
So we have to stay ahead of the game.
okay. Any questions or entertain a motion? This was passed through finance already.
I make a motion to approve the GoGuardian.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passed. Okay.
No, there are new business.
Oh, one more. Oh, I do have, the policy.
I'm talking about I was reading the charter school law to refresh my memory, and then I'll come up about the anonymous tip line.
Which, by today, I got a strongly worded email from DPI saying I had to confirm that it was the person sent it to themselves and then blind copied everyone. So I don't know if it went to Susan, but I had to confirm that I had received the information that there is an anonymous tip line now. I had to acknowledge the email that we understand there's an anonymous tip that goes into July 1.
Yes, ma'am, we've already got it in place.
Okay, so I don't know why they,
We have an anonymous tip line
First, that
Yes,
news.
ma'am.
on our campus.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, we did. It's tied into our Swift K-12. It was an add-on we were able to tie in with our Swift K-12.
Are there requirements that we put the information?
and so is someone going to explain exactly what that means for our school?
Basically, students, if they are, I'm sorry, I'm jumping right ahead, but I was in negotiations for that. Basically, if a student wants to report a threat, or bullying, or any assembly of those situations, they can either text or call to a number that will be published once we hit the July 1 rollover and we have to put everything in place. The numbers are already established, everything's ready to go. They will be able to call or text that number. It goes into an alerts, administrators, which we will, right now I'm sitting as the administrator for it, but we will partition it out to whatever. Whoever we decide is going to be the heads of the whatever reporting agency you need to do. And it will play back the recorded message or the text message. It masks the student's number, but it does log from where it came from. So if Michelle called 4 times from her number, it would give an ID like this is user 0001. So that way you can see if there's repeated things going on with this particular person, if somebody's just spamming your system, or if this is something that's, really an issue. There is a way within it that you can unmask the number in case of like a bomb threat, a suicide threat, something of that nature. But that is very secure and very password protected.
Right.
And how will this information be deployed to families?
It will be deployed on our website and also through newsletters.
I mean, the information about the home.
Where the number is and everything.
Yeah, what the number is, that what we're talking about.
Yes, how will they know?
And another thing we need, I guess we'll need at some point to consider too, is what do we want to do with the information? Because if it's an anonymous tip line, it's almost,
With certain things, like if it's a situation of bullying or if it's a situation of a discipline issue, it obviously would be something that I think would need to be handled by the academy leaders.
right.
If it is a physical threat to the school, then there we have to report that to the authorities.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying from the academy leader standpoint, is what are we going to do with the information? Or, if they're, let's say it's a report of a bullying incident. So at most you can do is go to the student that's accused of doing the bullying.
Actually, I think I do remember, I played with the system a little more, we are able to send a reply back to the person.
I think this would require us to create policy around, because we've never had an anonymous tip line, and I think it would require a policy that goes with this now.
And there needs to be a policy.
So it's outlined what we will do, how quickly we'll respond. If somebody's like, look, I called you 2 weeks ago and nobody's even, I got a call back saying it was acknowledged, but other than that, nothing has happened. So I think for, this is at the level that we need very clear criteria, because something brand new.
Use of a hotline, there needs to be something in place, and I don't know if the statute speaks to that, but
I was gonna say, does TPI not give any guidance on policy and implementation that would help us draft that policy?
I didn't.
DPI basically said we had to have one in place.
You have to have one in place, and that was it.
And then they come
It
out.
just went from should to shall.
Yeah.
That was the legislation.
And they come out and roll out their own as well. So there's basically 2 now.
Their own tip line or their own
Their
policy?
own anonymous tip line.
we need to look into what we can do, or should do for abuse of said hotline. I don't have the answer to that, so, but it's something that.
At this point, all I can do is just track,
Right.
I can tell you it is being abused, I can tell you what to do.
So who's administering this?
I'm administrator for.
No, I mean, who's providing the anonymization service?
It is through Swift K-12, the same people who do our call management system.
So you're the safety lead. You
Yes.
sign up as a safety lead, okay.
For right now, and because I'm the head of the Swift K-12 thing, because it's a PowerSchool plug-in, it fell under me, but I can reassign that to whoever we need necessary.
Well, it's really more information on how to get it up and running and so forth, as opposed to how the school should incorporate it into their, yes, operating procedure. But I do think we need to, very quickly put together some kind of policy and present at the July meeting. And also so you can train your teachers.
And I will say also that, in a rudimentary form, we have had an anonymous Google form, which students have been able to fill out in the past if they've had concerns, and it's gone to our counselors. So it's not necessarily a new concept here. It's being rolled out and more focus being put on it.
Did you ever
this
find
way.
But it has the backing of DPI, which takes it to another level in terms of if we don't do what we're supposed to do internally. They're just, but now they can turn around to DPI and say, I utilized your service and XYZ did not.
Without doubt, but I would, just to address the fact, we have been able to to conduct investigations and find solutions to those sorts of situations that have come through those anonymous forms as well.
So I guess, I mean, when you go to John Smith and say, we received an anonymous tip that you bullied so-and-so in math class.
It happens a little bit differently than that, right? I mean, but we start with John Smith's location, and then we talk to everybody around John Smith before we talk to John Smith.
My concern is I sat through several equity meetings. I know this is an issue. It's been a long-standing issue. We've been on the news talking about our lack of response to bullying years and years ago. So we need to manage perceptions and be ahead in saying that we are doing things that are, we're being very proactive and take this very seriously. And I think that this could fit very nicely into some actions that we're doing for our families who have great concern and have been very vocal about, you know,
And while it's
bullying that's happening on
It's an
campus.
important resource for us to be able to use and have, however, does not need to be, because of the seriousness of it, it should not be abused.
Right.
And that was still my question, did y'all ever have an issue with the use of a Google form, like someone just like retaliating against somebody for something?
Yes. But I mean, that comes out pretty quickly.
Okay. Is that it? I don't have anything else in my jacket, so okay. And did you, I guess a little bit of our new business is that we wanted to move towards having a little bit of a clinic at every meeting on a charter school law. And Rodney has taken the time to come up, has reviewed some and said, hey, it might be interesting if we just have a quick discussion on, did you know this is a charter school law? So nothing, hour-long presentation or whatever, but it is interesting. The first one he brought that I was not aware of, so I think it just helps in terms of awareness. And maybe it could be a handout and that we.
So pre-read comes out in the packet, just one section, and then we just say, hey, any discussion about it.
Mm-hmm. Is this something we want to do in the future? Or
Yeah,
in
in the future. Okay, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session for personnel and administrative discussion.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We are adjourned for closed session.